American Faith Voices for Justice. We're a statewide interfaith education and advocacy organization dedicated to bringing together people of different faiths to work together toward justice. This evening, we're focusing on the intersection between anti-Semitism and racism. Dr. King famously said, "Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that." When Dr. King talked about love, he defined love as agape, an overflowing love which is purely spontaneous, unmotivated, groundless, and creative. Dr. King said, "We love people because God loves them, not because of any inherent merit or good deeds, but simply because they are fellow human beings." Dr. King affirmed that it takes strength to make room in our hearts for that kind of love. What does it take for us today to locate that strength and to give space for that love to grow? Today, both the Jewish and the African American communities are threatened by the rise of white Christian nationalism, which has led to an alarming increase in anti-Semitism and the growing normalization of racism. We need to locate that love and that strength in order to face these threats together and create the society we all want to see, that beloved community of equality, equity, and true justice. Back in 1964, three Black and Jewish activists, James Chaney, Michael Schwerner, and Andrew Goodman, struggling to share love by registering African Americans in Mississippi to vote, lost their lives to this important cause. They worked together out of love for their fellow human beings. They knew that these acts of love took strength, courage, persistence, and commitment. What can we learn from them today and their deeds to summon our strength to love? Love and mutual commitment to justice has been the hallmark of the relationship between the Jewish and African American communities for over 100 years. Sadly, so much of that shared history has been forgotten. African Americans worked together with Jewish allies to create the NAACP. Julius Rosenwald worked with Booker T. Washington to create the Rosenwald Schools to provide decent schoolhouses for African American children in the segregated South. Better known as the friendship between Dr. King and Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel. Rabbi Heschel marched in Selma with Dr. King, famously saying he felt that he was praying with his feet. These activists for justice worked together out of love and a shared commitment to a vision of a better world. For us to find that love today will again require courage and strength. Before we can love one another, we have to learn anew each other's history and the intersections of our histories. Even more, we have to be able to listen to and to really hear each other's pain. All of this will take courage and strength. Through learning and listening, we will build deep and meaningful relationships based on mutual trust and respect. Dr. King said, "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny." Let us all here this evening commit to that network of mutuality and work together to find that strength to grow together in love. Ken Yehi Ratzon, may that be God's will.
As we take a moment to pray together, I invite you to just pay attention to your body. Notice where you are sitting. Notice if you are holding any tension. Pay attention to your breath. I invite you to enter into a position that is prayerful for you. And we pray. O holy God, source of wisdom, source of power, source of love, In this moment, as we honor the legacy of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and all of those who worked together in the moments of the civil rights movement, and all of the ways in which that work has carried forward throughout generations. We pray now for that spirit of love and unity, that commitment to justice, that willingness to sacrifice, and that vision of a beloved community to be made known among us. We pray for a blessing upon our conversation here. And we pray that we will be renewed and nourished through these relationships and through a common yearning, so that tomorrow and the next day and the next month and the next year, we'll start to see this dream of a beloved community being born among us through our relationships, through our advocacy, through our commitment to justice, through the ways in which our unique faith and values come together in a shared hope. May it be so. Amen.
First of all, I want to thank Rhonda and Race and Faith for the opportunity to partner with you on this important program and conversation. My name is Andrea Bernstein, and I am the Associate Director of the Jewish Community Relations Council of the Milwaukee Jewish Federation. Our work at the JCRC is to convene and mobilize the Jewish community through relationship building and issue education and advocacy in pursuit of a Milwaukee where all communities can thrive. This very mission centers on the idea in this brilliant quote from Dr. King: "We are all caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied into a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly." Tonight's program is critical because our shared future depends on our ability to work together, dismantling the forces of white supremacy, racism, and anti-Jewish hatred. We must commit to rooting our conversations in love and in humility so we can remain in relationship through difficult conversations and even mistakes. If this work were easy, we would have already created the beloved community we want to be. So let's challenge ourselves and each other with love and a belief in our individual and collective capacity for growth. And thank you all for showing up for this conversation.
Thank you, Andrea. Thank you, Pastor Steve, and thank you, Rabbi Bonnie, for centering us for tonight's important discussion. At this time, I would like to invite the panelists to all turn on your cameras. We are going to begin our panel discussion. I invite those of you who are here with us to feel free to help us have a robust and lively conversation by posting in the chat box. There will be a portion later on in the evening where we'll create space for you to share any additional questions you may have or want to ask or comments about tonight's discussion. So hopefully you found the chat box by now. Feel free to make comments, send like, yes, that's right, wonderful, great. All good, positive, affirming comments. So be nice in the chat box and root us on and let us know that you are following the conversation and you're vibing with where we're going. I'm so blessed this evening to work with and know and get the chance to dialogue with each of the folks here with us tonight. I'm so happy to see where this goes. What's important for me and what's important for this event, something to say, is the intergenerational conversation. Racism is that thing that has traveled with us from one generation to the next. And so I feel it's important that we engage every generation on the conversation, because everyone has something to say. And now that we have widened the conversation this year to look at anti-Semitism, which is a old evil, right, in the world, older than even racism itself, we get a chance to engage not only the issues of anti-Semitism, but then we get to widen and look at our faith community overall and have this interfaith discussion, which is very important to me as well. And so we have a panel that stretches across race, that stretches across age, and that stretches across religious ideology. And so I hope you all are ready to be engaged and learn from this great set of panelists, who I will allow to introduce themselves, and every panelist will get a chance to introduce themselves and answer this question as you do so. So I'm going to invite each of you to share your name, and as you are sharing your name, I want to start with our first question, which I will also put in the chat box as well. What do you love most about your religious identity? So share your name, and you can share with us all what you love most about your religious identity. And I will start with Moshe. Not that he is setting the stage and everybody has to copy him and answer it the way he answers it. But we'll just start with him. So go ahead and introduce yourself and share with us what you love most about your religious identity. And then once you introduce yourself, you can invite another panelist to go after you.
I'm extremely happy that I'm not following puppy dogs and like some magnificent singer. So I have a relatively low bar to set. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Rhonda, thank you very much. Rabbi and Steve, thank you both for sharing your thoughts for the opening. I always try to present something that's a different way of looking at things. It's hard to talk about optimism when you're talking about anti-Semitism. It's a rather heavy topic, to say the least. But if you're asking me what my favorite part of my religion is that the fact that we're here. The fact that in spite of the fact that we are a member of the longest hated group on the planet, we are alive, we are thriving, we are doing amazing things on the planet that we're living on, doing so in manners that are small and large alike. The fact that we have a country of our own that we can turn to for better, for worse, certain hours of the day, not so much for better, other hours of the day, very much for the better. There's tremendous pride I take in that, in long history. I also cherish the fact that my relationship to the religion isn't just in its religious context, but it's in its social context. It's in its space in history. It's in its space in the variety of the way I look. I don't just look white. I look like a Jew who came from Cochin, India, or I look like a Jew who came from China, or I look like a Jew because our interspersing, our diasporic nomadic life has brought us to every corner and space available on this planet, the result of which is we look and feel and behave differently. We've been your neighbors wherever we've been. And to that end, again, I'm proud of that, and I take tremendous joy in that opportunity. I love the fact that when you talk about Jews and you talk of Jews of color, or you ask us the questions about what do we eat, what do we think? Well, my answer is, what languages do you want us to speak? And we probably do. What food have we eaten? We probably have eaten them all. There's that space in it that I really, truly cherish. So on a simple level, I love being Jewish. I love being Jewish and everything that it portends and everything that's all about it. I'm going to hand this off to one of my most favorite people on this call. And Elsie, no, that's not you this particular time. But I want to bring into the fact that I have a relationship with this individual and his daughter, who I am angry I have not seen in too long. Pardeep, you have become a tremendous partner in this community. I cannot thank you enough. You deserve every award you get. I hope you get one 24/7 for the rest of your life, because you really are a magnificent member of the community. So Pardeep, I'm passing this off to you.
Thank you, Mush. Amherst thinks it's very annoying, so she's like, "No more awards, no more." But yeah, no, just thank you so much. I'm just excited about today. I think we were over at the Capitol, and it really did seem like a party. You know, and I think today is a celebration of the life of Dr. King. It's a celebration of, you know, and we spoke about this, but Dr. King and you know, the spirit of Dr. King was much more than, not that he was not a man, but he was much more than a man, and represented such a spirit that was felt throughout that entire rotunda. And as people were singing from different faith groups, and there was this common, sort of this common, and as it was kind of alluded to, kind of this mutuality that was in the air of, you know, whether we were coming from you know, a place overseas, or whether we were from the United States, but there was this spirit that was very much alive and is still alive. And I think to our core, this is why today is so special, is because it reminds us of that spirit that lays in all of us. And for me, that's my favorite thing about Sikhi, and getting to know the, you know, the other faiths pretty intimately. I think that's the common thing about all of us, is that we have our different ways of finding a deeper sense of that spirit, but we all belong to that same one. And in Sikhi, that is the first words that are written, and those are the first words that you should remember before you read any part of the book, which is Ek Onkar, which is, we all belong to the same God, and we all, you know, after this life, we'll all return to that same God. And so it reminds me of our mission on earth, which is, you know, again, to really love one another. Rhonda said this best in our video, but that love ethic. That love ethic doesn't need to need like, lots of times when you say love, people understand it to be easy. For many of us who have been, you know, in relationships for a long time, or understand the depth of that love, we know that it's anything but easy. So I think that love, peace, this type of ethic that Dr. King called us upon, this challenge that he called us upon, is this calling upon us to remember our oneness together.
Mhm. Hi, I'm Amaris. And just to bounce off of that, again, the whole root of Sikhi is Sikh means learner, and that's probably my favorite part of the religion. I love the community we have, and I love the ideology of just constantly learning and constantly bettering yourself as a person. And again, we also have to love our history, good or bad. Or I love the history of our people, the fighting spirit of our people, and the fighting spirit that MLK gives us today. So that's my favorite part of the religion, and that's something that can be passed on to anyone. And it's not just religion; it's a way of life, you know.
And you get to call him.
Oh, all right, Paula.
Unmute yourself, Paula.
Okay. Sorry about that. My name is Paula Penny Baker again. And in response to the question about how do I identify, I was raised Christian, and specifically as a Methodist. I didn't think about that for a really long time in terms of what opinions I had about it that were my own and not just those that were handed down to me, until I was 16 years old. And that's when race intersected with religion. And I was confronted by real ugly grown-up behavior. And I couldn't understand how people who call themselves Christian could behave in such an ugly manner. So I went through years of being angry and not wanting to be bothered with church and all that kind of stuff. And then just when I thought I was getting my head on straight, the political nature of Christianity made it such that I didn't even want to identify as Christian. I became a quiet Christian then, and I was more thoughtful about making sure my behavior was consistent with what I believed it was to be a good person. Because there's so many negative connotations exist now around Christianity that it makes it very difficult to live that way. So I've been involved in this work for a very long time, and most recently in the last 15, 16 years ago, working with the YWCA of Southeast Wisconsin. Many of you, I hope, are familiar with the mission of the organization, at least during the time that I was there. We really tried to breathe life into the mission of eliminating racism and empowering women. And I became really steeped in that and have spent a lot of time and effort in the years since committing myself to that purpose. I'm getting more comfortable with the Christian thing in recent years, but I still don't go around with a placard on my chest that says I'm a Christian because I don't want to fight all the time. So that's where I'm coming from with regard to my religious background. I'm going to go with Byron.
All right. Thank you so much, Paula. And it was a pleasure meeting you when I was doing the anti-racism training with the YWCA some years back. So it was great time to join in. Thank you again, Rhonda, and to all the panelists for joining tonight. I am Minister Byron Johnson. I am an associate minister of the Progressive Baptist Church here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I serve with my pastor, Walter J. Lanier, who is also the CEO of the African American Leadership Alliance of Milwaukee as well. I serve as associate minister. I've been a minister since I was in college, and just been growing through my experiences in the church, in the Christian church, also Christian, as Paula mentioned, and her just piggybacking off of her experiences are not far from many other experiences that I believe we have just in the politics of religion and the politics of belief and seeking to gather people and control and do whatever it is that people feel are able to do. But what I love though about Christianity is for me, there is, in the midst of all of the chaos or confusion that the world offers, there's still a connection to the divine, to divine inspiration, and there's still a connection to having revelation to what are the most necessary things to accomplish, and what are the most necessary things to say, what are the most necessary things to do to meet the needs of the people. There's always going to be needs that need to be met, and there's always going to be a connection to the divine that everyone must have, or just there has to be a connection to the inward self. And for me, the divine is in the inward self, and the divine is above us and beyond us. And it is also able to do the things that we cannot do. And looking at Dr. Martin Luther King's life, that's to me what gave him the power to make the impact that he had. to be able to walk with the divine relationship that he had with God, and through his faith, and through his relationship. So the power that Dr. King had to be able to speak to those pharaohs, to say, let the people go, right? The power that Dr. King had to be able to tell and teach and reveal the truth to people that they needed to see for their freedom, that came from the divine, the God who gives us the blueprint and the path to our next step, to our freedom, to our joy, to our life that's more abundantly, right? And I say, I live by the words of Jesus. You know, he says, I come that you might have life and life more abundantly. And I have that abundant life by having connection to the divine. And that is not short of any blessing. So that's what I love most about Christianity for me, and following the path of Jesus. So without further ado, I will send it to Elsie Crawford.
I was thinking we was about to get a wind up. I ain't know if I need to have cue my little organ or what.
Oh yeah,
that preacher coming out.
Get over it.
That's all right.
Thank you, Byron. That's a hard act to follow. I'm Elsie Crawford, born and raised in the Netherlands, hence my accent. I'm working at the Repairing Together project, where we connect 4 area schools together to learn from each other, from the backgrounds, from the histories, and hopefully become better neighbors, friends, and allies. We work with Bruce Guadalupe, Dr. Martin Luther King Elementary School, Indian Community School, and Milwaukee Jewish Day School. And what I love about my religious identity, besides what Moshe already said, and that I fully agree with, I like the fact that no matter what country you're in, you go to a Jewish community and you might not speak the local language, but you feel a sense of community. You know what they're talking about, you know the lyrics when you go into a synagogue, and you have that immediate sense of community there. And when I moved to Milwaukee, I also discovered a larger community and the larger family with all the different flavors, religions, and backgrounds. And I'm blessed to be on a journey of eternal learning, trying to do a crash course with everything that wasn't taught in Europe, and that I'm making myself familiar with here. I'm very optimistic with everything that I've seen with the very young ones and with the teenagers here. And maybe that's not a common opinion, but I'm super optimistic for this country, this continent, for the world, because I think with the young ones coming up, we're in very good shape. So yeah, with that, I would like to pass it on to Nicole.
Thank you. And thank you, Rhonda, for having me, and to all the panelists, everyone here today. My name is Nicole Gorlick. I'm a graduate student, part of the Trinity Fellowship at Marquette University, and I co-run an organization called Moishe Pod Milwaukee, where we engage young Jewish adults throughout the city, ages 22 through 32, through different programs. We plan 3 programs a month, and we have a good time. So there are many things that I love about being Jewish. It was really hard for me to pick just one, but I think where I find the biggest connection and something I truly value about Judaism is its dedication and commitment to Tikkun Olam, which is repairing the world. I think for me, as someone who's passionate about social justice, I don't think I would have ever discovered that passion if it wasn't for the Jewish community constantly doing something in the name of Tikkun Olam, in the name of bettering the world, bettering different groups all over the world, in our own city. So I resonate a lot to that specific value. And Also, I really love the community aspect. Similarly to what was said, I think anytime you meet someone who's Jewish, it's a very automatic like, oh, okay, we're gonna vibe, we're gonna be good. So I just think there's nothing like that. You can meet someone who's an ultra Orthodox Jew or someone who doesn't even believe in God, who's agnostic, but they're still Jewish, and you still feel that connection because Judaism is an ethno-religion. There's just that universal connection to our history, to our culture. No matter how you practice today, you still feel that connection. So those are two things that I really value. Thank you. I think I'm the last one. So back to you, Rhonda.
Awesome. Thank you all for sharing. I really wanted to start with that because it is an interfaith panel. I just wanted to stress that and make that space for you to show the love and the pride that you have for your own faith and religious background. And for me, I'm Christian. What is really cool for me and what has been is being in an interfaith space, it has deepened my Christian faith. Sometimes people tend to think that if you mix or you hang out with other people who aren't associated with your religious tradition, that somehow it weakens your tradition or you'll stop your practices and start doing theirs. I just think that's immature thinking. But what I really think it does, it invites you to really investigate what you believe, why you believe it, and it deepened my commitment to my Christian faith. And what I love about being Christian is, for me today, with Dr. King and thinking about his life and legacy, a heavy theme in Christianity is this sacrifice and sacrifice being redemptive. And I think that we see that through Dr. King's life and legacy. He died. He had made many sacrifices, but then what came out of that was some redemptive qualities that came out of that gave us what we have today, and what we rejoice in today, and this beloved community that we keep reaching for. And that mimics what we get and what we think about when we think about the life of Jesus, how that sacrifice leads to redemption in a way. And so that's a powerful thing for me. And it just makes, one thing I love about being Christian is humbling and it's grounding for me. So as we switch, I want to start with you again, Nicole. Again, we may not get to every panelist for this question, but since you were the last person to speak, Nicole, we'll start with you for this next one. And I put the question in the chat box. What is one challenge that you have experienced related to your identity as a person of color, as a person of faith, or as a person of your generation? So that's the question that we're asking of the panelists. What is a challenge that you face related to your identity, either as a person of color, or as a person of faith, or as a person of your generation? And you may say, hey, all three of these apply to me. And that goes to speak to intersectionality. Sometimes it's not just that one thing. And for some of the panelists, it might just only be one, and that's fine. But as we think about intersectionality, and that was one of our keywords in your package that you got, you can go through that and look that up. But it really just speaks to, for those of us who have, three things to think about. And it's interesting listening to some of my other Christian panelists here talk about the stain of being Christian in some ways. I think we could play around with that because also now, Christian is the power force as well. So it's some oppressive behavior with the religion that we have to think about and be sensitive to. But intersectionality means that then we're carrying even more weight, more oppressive baggage, if you will, around. So, Nicole, since you finished it, we'll start with you. What's one challenge that you've experienced?
Yeah.
Just one. Okay. Let me say this here. Now I let all the panelists just wax poetic and say everything you need to say. Now we're tightening it up. Okay. This is gonna be responses a minute or less. Okay. So there you go.
All right, I will do my best. So I think so when I'm thinking about the question, I'm thinking about, a challenge that I have within the Jewish community, and also a challenge I have as a Jew within the greater community of all different faiths, all different backgrounds. And I think those are two very different challenges. This is a one answer, but A and B. I think a challenge I have within the Jewish community is often having to speak for my generation within the community to show that we do care about our Judaism. We're keeping this going. I think there's a lot of talk, like, the younger generation doesn't care as much about Judaism, but my challenge is trying to prove that we do care. It's just in a different way. The way we care might show in our social justice efforts in the name of Judaism. It might show in the way we just live our average daily life, the way we want to strive to become better people, again, in the name of Judaism. So that's a little challenge I would say I often face. And in the greater community, it's having to prove it's feeling a little isolated sometimes within certain communities as a Jew, not always feeling like our voices are heard, or the things that are happening to Jews nowadays is being talked about, feeling like I'm always the one who has to bring up, did you see what happened to the Jewish people here? Did you see what happened there? So sometimes I find it challenging to have to constantly be the person to bring up these issues. So that's my answer, and I will pass it to Byron.
1 minute, Byron.
Let me try. Thank you, Nicole. And thank you for your insight too. Let me just say this too. It's so important for me as a Christian to hear the stories of people of different faith, because that's an issue that I have with my faith, my religion. There's so many silos, and inclusivity, which can be good in some way, but there's also the fear of not learning about the other people that exist, not learning about the other life experiences that exist, not learning or refusing to embrace the other people and the other life experiences that are out there. And so that's one struggle that I have about our faith in the Christian church, is that, it's not just the Christian church that exists. And for generations and for years, it's been this and not that, or this, only this, or that. And if you choose that, it's no more of this, right? It's you're wrong, you're right and wrong, and all of that. And there needs to be, and there has been in many ways as time has progressed, some eye-opening experiences, some learning that needs to happen. And then also that fear of leading to the fear that leads many of us to stay silent, keeps us from really taking on the challenges, from really making the change that we need to take on. We sometimes sweep a lot of things under the rug that we really should stand on top of and do something about. And usually cover that up with looking good, wearing our best suits, covering up our pain, covering up our flaws, and falsifying the realities. And so that's the issue that I have, because as a minister of the gospel, I have to deal with the real issues. I won't be an effective minister or Christian if I fake or sweep under the rug the real issues. So learning about the real issues that people have, and learning how to deal with them, learning how to be in community and in covenant with everyone, and create space and create a safe space for everyone. That's the challenge, and that's what I'm seeking to learn. But it's tough as a fellow Christian minister to even have a conversation with other preachers, right? Other churches, other church leaders who are against the learning, who are against learning about other faces, or learning about other life experiences, learning about other identities, because of ignorance, or not wanting to offend anyone, or not wanting to, turn their, or because it might feel like they're turning their back on their faith. Whatever it is, that's the biggest issue, and that's what I seek to, as I keep it at a minute, that's what I seek to.
I gave you 3 minutes.
Yeah, thank you. That's what I seek to challenge. So thanks.
For our next question, thank you both for answering that question and digging in. And those of you who are watching, that are engaged in this conversation as well, you can feel free, if you want to answer one of these questions. I'm putting them all in the chat box. I would love to hear some of your responses, or your thoughts, or your ideas about some of these questions, or some of the things that you've been challenged with as well. Put that in the chat box, and I will glance at those. We all can take time to glance and look at them. So for our next question is, what is an example of language used or a relational practice that people or organizations do that affirms your intersectional identity and or helps you to feel a sense of belonging? So what is some languages or practices and things that people do that make you feel affirmed? And with that, I'm going to start with Amaris, if you would kick us off with this question. And then after that, you can invite another person to answer the question. What's the example of language used or a relational practice that people or organizations, what they can do to make you feel affirmed, make you feel that you belong?
So this was actually, this goes with the other question quite well, because I was thinking as, one of the problems I face as a sick person, a sick woman, is nobody really understands who sicks are. Nobody understands what sick is. If you ask me, oh, what's your religion? I have to follow it up with a explanation. And I feel like what would make me feel affirmed, but would probably make a lot of, not just the sick people, but our generation feel affirmed, is going to school, and people know what sick is. People are taught that in school, along with the other religions that are taught in school. And within our community, though, I feel a sense of belonging anytime I go there. Anytime I go to the temple or gurdwara, it's a very family feel, and I can talk to anyone there. And that's something that's so lovely about Punjabi culture and our culture, is we are very close knit, and we all know each other. If I see someone I don't know and I can see that they are Punjabi, or I can see that they are Sikh, I have a relationship with them automatically. I can say hi to them. They will invite me in. And that is something that's great about our community. We're very inviting people. Somebody else. Okay. And then I'll pass it on to Moshe.
Thanks, Amaris. It's really interesting. You bring up the very like the springboard to what I actually wanted to say in the first question, and what I'll add to what you just said just now. My optimism, my faith in the future, unfortunately, has happened sometimes under really rotten situations. When there was a horrific attack and the murder of Jews at the Tree of Life Synagogue, there was a gathering at Congregation Beth Israel, where literally we filled the entire synagogue with people from cross-generationally. There was you name it, we were there. The population in that synagogue was of every color, of every faith, of every denomination, of every age you can possibly imagine, of every ability. It was really spectacular. And at one point, the rabbi of the synagogue asked for clerics to join him on the dais. And waves of people came onto the pulpit. Waves. And I had this feeling of unbelievable love and unbelievable support, because I heard and I saw "Not on my watch" in action. And if there's a space where I feel we have the best opportunity for the future, and in a way, Amaris, in a way, Nicole, in a way, I could take it from the youngest to the most senior amongst us, we're going to pass that baton off to you to make sure you're there, to make sure it's not on your watch. Our responsibility to each other can't just be within our own faith. It has to be across our denominations, across our abilities, across our beliefs, for us to grow with each other, for us to be there for each other, not just when bad things are happening, but in fact, when we're there to celebrate each other's celebrations. I want to be there at your weddings. I want to be there at your births. I want to be there in spaces where I get to thrive as I am as a Jew and how you do as a Christian, as I do as a Christian and how you do as a Sikh. Those are the spaces that I think our future is best solidified and where I find tremendous intersection. Am I calling on somebody?
Oh, no, thank you both for that. I was definitely Amaris, when you mentioned, you know, what would it be like that affirmation to have your religion taught in schools. That just really, like, when you said that, I was like, wow, that hit me, because you just think about it, just further highlights how much we don't really share other people's traditions, cultures, or religious ideas, how Christian centric we are with a lot of ideologies. And I don't even know, even if you did perhaps maybe world history, maybe, I don't even remember that, because I think I had that course, and I don't think I ever learned about Sikhs until I met Bardeep. So yeah, so it's just really thinking about what those things are, that affirmation, what that looks like, and what it means to really see another person, like you were saying, Most, to just show up, to engage, and make those real relationships and not just surface relationships where we can be engaged in the lives of each other.
Rhonda, can I use an example that actually proves Amaris's point so well?
Oh, sure.
University of Wisconsin-Madison decided to start the school year on a Jewish holiday. And in years past, there's been tests given on Jewish holidays. The JCRC, the Jewish Community Relations Council, sends out a 5-year calendar to almost every institution out there. We've done it, used to do it by mail and actually, in a page form. Now we do it by email in any which way we can, so that things like this don't happen. Our response from the schools was basically, well, we won't charge anybody on those days. We won't hold it against them for. No, that's not how you respect somebody. That's not what you're supposed to be doing. If there's really a space for us in each other's lives, then there's a space for us in each other's lives, right? Amaris's needs are no different than my needs. I often laugh about that. I've been a vegan for a long time. Going into a restaurant that offers to have quote unquote vegan options on the menu, and you get to the place and there's not anything there, nor are there any opportunities there. Sorry, it's not exactly an inviting place to go to. We keep doing that to each other. We keep finding spaces where we're not welcome in your space. And that's got to change. And it's got to change top down and bottom up.
Hey, Dad, can you turn your camera off? Side note there. So this last question, and I want the panelists to start getting your questions together, because it's coming to close to your time to ask another panelist of a different generation a question. So get your questions together. We'll go over this last question here, and I'll start with you, Paula, since you just posted in the chat box. Are there resources that you recommend for people to continue to listen to and learn from as it relates to interfaith understanding, racism, or anti-Semitism? And with you having led the YWCA and that mission for a while, I'm sure you have a number of anti-racist resources we can tap into.
Yes, and I'll be as quick as possible. I always go for easy solutions that people in today's society look for because they want quick shots of information. There's a plethora of contemporary movies, videos, things like that that people can gather around and have discussions about. Include articles, periodicals, things like that to enhance the discussion. I think there are many resources available that people wouldn't necessarily think about to open new discussions. There are lots of books, tons and tons of good books written by credible, great authors that aren't all tomes that people can gather small groups together and talk about issues and concerns of the day. There are lots of resources that I'd be happy to offer up titles to, but I think those are easy ways for people from different backgrounds, different religions, different identities can sit down and talk to each other, argue, debate, just really dig in and then go have something to eat afterwards. Food is the great equalizer.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna pull Elsie in on this one too, because you work with a lot of schools. You're working with 4 different schools right now. Do you have some resources you want to offer up? And in the guidebook, I list a lot of resources, a ton of links for resources as well. But I just wanted to know if you had thoughts about resources that would be available to folks or that we should mention here.
Well, not necessarily resources, but I think that what works best is to just have small groups of people together of different backgrounds, go for coffee, for tea, or like Paula said, with food there, and just talk to one another without fear to ask inappropriate questions, just to move beyond what you think is polite, leave the politeness at home. And what Amara said is, there's so much that we don't know that hasn't been taught in schools that we should be teaching. So until that's done, we can only help each other move forward by just talking, asking questions, and learning that way. And I know from a lot of people of different backgrounds that they say, we're so tired of having to explain other people about ourselves. But if we don't do it, we don't own the narrative that the good information gets out there. And if you want people to truly understand where you're coming from and what your story is, you better do it yourself. Then you know that at least it comes across as you intended to. And I'm working a lot also with the Native American community, and to put a correlation there between the Jewish community and the Native American community, there's always a lot of talk about Jews and anti-Semitism, and we are a lot in the news, I think, and out there for such a small percentage of the population that we are. And then you have the Native Americans who have equal amount of trauma, intergenerational trauma, and they're hardly ever in the news. So it's such a juxtaposition that, and we talk about that. And I've learned a lot about it myself. The students learn a lot about it. And I would love to have a lot of younger people like Amaris being in conversations with old geezers like me and others to just get into that soft spot of slightly uncomfortable conversation, but that brings you to a different level. And if you ask for a book that I loved, is How the Word is Passed. That I think that's one of the greatest books, should be on every book list of middle school. And I think we should teach our kids younger. I've heard people say we don't teach about the Holocaust until they're in high school. High school in the Netherlands, we start at age 5. And of course, you start appropriately for the age with simple language. But it's okay to deal with tough conversation at a younger age. And I think we'd all benefit from that. But that's just my humble opinion.
Well, thank you for that. Put that book in the chat box too, that you recommended. That what you recommend is really how Elsie and I have had our relationships, meeting at coffee shops, going for walks, and just talking and having conversation. My ignorance came out with her when she told me she was Jewish. I was like, oh, she totally did not fit my stereotype of who could be Jewish. Because she's blonde and really light, if you will.
Well,
And
I'm
so-
a mutt too, Rhoda.
But
Rhoda.
in my
I'm
mind,
never full bred, right?
yeah. In my mind, though, I only saw Jews with people with dark curly hair. Maybe like Nicole would fit more the image what I thought a Jewish person could look like, which goes to the point about what we're showed in the media, and the importance why we try to stress that Jews of color as well. So hopefully folks can get a chance to watch that video I did with a couple of Jews of color who couldn't be on the panel today. But to your point about the Native Americans, that goes to race as well. Why do we see more? Here's the stories of what happens to folks in Jewish communities more often not, because most people are presented with European Jews, and that looks so as the whiteness and such, and this fascination that this country has with whiteness. Well, Native Americans is a direct opposition to everything this country says it stands for. So then they have to face the cruelty and the sins, if you will, that's still being committed against Native communities. And so we can definitely in the future look forward to having more of a something to say conversation around Native communities and cultures, and really kind of bringing that to the light in the forefront. So I think that's a worthwhile conversation to have. As we wrap up, I'm going to invite you, Pardeep, to share your question to another panelist that you have put in a lot of deep thought into. What's the question you have for a panelist of another generation?
So I like to ask questions that are a bit, let's think about solutions. Let's think about ways that we can work. Nicole, what are some ways in which we can work together to have healthier relationships that have genuine understanding of your experience or somebody else's experience?
Thank you for the question. I think that's an important question, and it's something that I'm grappling with every day, it seems. I was thinking earlier about all the questions we were presented for this panel, and specifically, oh, is there someone unmuted?
Sammy, either God is speaking or you're.
Oh, Sammy. Yeah. Thank you. Sorry. Not to call you out. Sorry, Sammy. But yeah, no, I think I was thinking a lot. I'm like, there's certain questions that come up about different faiths, different cultures that sometimes instead of going to the source, you can just Google the question, and that solves the answer, and you don't have to come off ignorant, for lack of better terms. But then on the other hand, when you want to have those real human connections, I think that goes deeper than trying to figure out a certain simple question about someone else and their identity. So I know it seems really simple, but just asking someone to partner on an event, for example, and sharing. And I know not everyone is part of organizations to be able to do that, but being able to partner with organizations of different faith is, in my experience, an incredible way to, first of all, build trust, and second of all, really both be vulnerable and both share pieces of your identity that you may not organically just share with someone. But on a smaller level, it really starts with I think friendship and truly developing relationships with people that grew up differently than you. And a lot of times those tough topics just come up and you really just end up learning about each other because you've already developed this close relationship. So not sure if that was the best answer, but I really think just conversations, I think, can tell you a lot about people.
Well, Nicole, since you're talking, do you have a question to ask someone from another generation, different generation than you?
Yeah, I do. My question is actually for Pardeep. So perfect. My question was, how has interfaith relationships changed over the years now compared to maybe even 10 years ago? What are similarities you've seen and what are differences, and what does the future hold for that too?
So a really easy question, huh, Nicole? So no, that's thank you for that question. And I think just the way interfaith relations have looked like in the past, we are seeing much more diversity in faith, and even within the denominations or people who are maybe spiritual, not but not religious, and people have different ways of expressing their faith. And so some of the that comes with challenges, is to get to know people at a deeper level, but then also getting to know more people at a deeper level. uh for me, and I like when I just really, I love the way that people navigate life and what comes with them. So I think that within faith, we have just scratched the surface of getting to know somebody at that place, right? Like getting to know that part of their life. So as Amber's kind of spoke about some of the difficulties that she faces, um, there's a lot of people who will know Sikhs and say, okay, well, I can identify you with the turban, or I can identify with you with the kara, or I can identify you with this. But many people don't know a lot of the history of it, nor the philosophy of it, and that includes Sikhs, right? That includes us. And so even like the internal challenge is that people understand it at a surface level, and we make it really easy because somebody says, "Oh, well, you're Sikh and you have a turban and this." Okay, awesome, got it, cool, check the box. But then couldn't tell you anything that, like, the Nanak said, or anything that one of the gurus said, and that again, that includes us. So I think that the challenge is that we don't know the depth of that person. We don't know the depth of who they are. And I will say, because like, I think Rhonda spoke about this, I will know the depth of Christianity a bit more than even Islam or Judaism. But that's because we've been here, and I've learned theology at Marquette. I've learned the lessons of Christ, and now I can go past the surface, and then I can go to almost like an imagination of what was the suffering that Christ felt. What did he feel like? What is and then once you go past the surface, now you're getting to know somebody at the depth of who they are. So I think, yeah, great question, not an easy question at all. But a big challenge that we face is, how do we have deeper discussions like this amongst our faiths?
Thank you both. It's 7:41. Time is going by so fast. I want to make some room and space for folks who are with us. If you have a question or something you want to put out there and ask one of the panelists, please place your question in the chat box now, and we'll get to it. So we have a little time for questions from the audience out there. Is there another panelist with a burning question that you have to ask another panelist before we leave? That question needs to be out there. I want to give you a space and time to put that question out there before we take questions from folks that are watching and listening. Amherst, that you have a burning question?
No, she just said that. I love that you said that about our own people.
Oh, okay. I saw your lips moving on it. Okay. Oh, that's great. Oh, well, Daddy got a cool point. Okay. All right. Well, if no panelists have another question they want to put out there for another panelist. Oh, Elsie.
Yeah, I would like to ask Amaris what do you think you and your generation could need from us old ones to help you move along and on the path to a more equal world, so that you don't feel that everything rests upon the generation, or your generation's shoulders, but where can we help you to move it along? What are we forgetting?
I think that there's been a lot of isolation with the generations and age groups, and I think that there just needs to be more of a middle ground where everyone can be and everyone can understand each other. And me personally, I think that we just need advice. We just need perspective. We just need to know the different views of other generations and what they've seen. And obviously I only know one thing. I only know one world. I only know it's from when I was born, and there's many years that had passed that I didn't experience, and that many marks that I didn't see happen. So just knowing the real experience of those before me is probably the most useful thing.
Thank you. Okay, well, any other questions out there from the audience? Otherwise, we'll start to wrap up if we don't have any questions. Okay. We had a comment, which was nice. Thank you for that comment, Leah. Well, as we wrap up, I just want to thank you all for giving us this time tonight. It's really important that we do this. Hopefully we just modeled how you sit and have conversation, how you ask questions of folks who don't look like you, who are of a different age than you, and of a different faith than you, how you can sit and take up space together and just have a conversation. So I again want to thank those who have contributed to making this evening possible. Thank you for the support from the JCRC. Again, Andrea, your support and constant communication with me was just so valuable. Before, when I started this process, we were a team of 3 to 4 down to a team of 1, me. And so it's been really nice to have you join me. We also received a nice grant from the Phyllis and Ralph Swanson Endowment to help make this happen. And so I want to say special thanks to that endowment as well for helping make this evening possible. And so with that, I say thank you. Good night to you all. Make sure you do something king-like, not only today, but throughout the rest of this year. So good night.
Good night, guys.
Good night.
Great to see everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
And everybody, thank you all.
The person
Thank
that
you.
did have a question up here.
Somebody had a question?
Yeah, sorry. I don't wanna skip some person's question.
Chill.
Oh, well, go ahead and say it. I didn't see it. I'm sorry.
It says, how do you develop relationships when you don't know how to get started?
Oh, was that a private question?
No, sorry, how do you, when you want to develop a relationship with a group, but if you don't know how to meet them, or how do you start the relationship?
I think you have to physically get yourself out of whatever bubble you're in. Not that everyone lives in their own bubble, but you have to go to places you've never been before, wherever you are, you know, go to places you know are more Jewish compared to others, go to places you know have different cultures around, and really like make yourself uncomfortable. And then you move from there, you know?
What if your bubbles? What if the bubble you're in scares other people's bubbles? I'm sorry, we're gonna have a long conversation. We get into this.
No, I like that. I like their answer. I think that's a good answer. Sometimes people do feel intimidated by other groups, or they may feel like you were saying, Elsie, scared of saying the wrong thing. And I think sometimes people let the fear of saying like, oh, I might say something wrong. And so then you don't venture out. Like, I had a friend invite me to Irish Fest. If my friend didn't invite me, I maybe wouldn't have went, but I'm glad that I did go. And it gave me a different appreciation for that the Irish culture, dance and music, so I think you do. I like that. We have to let ourselves be uncomfortable. Were you gonna say something, Paula?
I was writing it, I'll delete now, but I think this is a good example of something that you can invite a person to join you with, and you'll see names and faces of people that you may not know, but you can connect with after this, usually through the host of a call, like contact Rhonda and find out how to get in touch with somebody and establish a relationship like that. So it is, it's uncomfortable, more so for some people than others. But if you're really committed to learning something about another community, a small gathering like this is a good way to do it, either online or in person. You go someplace and you just take a deep breath and walk up to them and say, hello, Amherst. My name is Paula. I'd like to get to know you better.
Is there any possibility that we here can meet in person sometime to have a roundtable conversation, just seeing eye to eye without the electronics? I would love to hear more from Byron and Paula, but seeing them really live in front of me. And is that possible, Rana? You can make
it is.
We
gotta get that field trip going. So we can do that. Yeah. I think for sure. Andrea just was having the same, she just posted the exact same thing in the chat box. Can we all get together from beyond these screens? And I'm totally open to that. Right. Nicole and I are planning a tea party anyway.
Who's hosting? Somebody hosting?
Nicole?
I'll host. Everyone come on over.
All right, potluck?
Yes. I'm not cooking for everyone, so potluck.
We have to make sure we have something vegan for Moshe.
Right. Oh, wait, Rhonda, you're trying to say something? You're on mute.
Yeah. I'm just saying that Nicole's home is very lovely for gatherings.
Oh, okay.
We're down.
Thanks.
All right, let's do something. Let's
I mean, I think I'd like to add there. I mean, the beauty is that there are things happening in our community already. There was something called Mosaic Partnership, which is how many of us got to meet each other, I don't know, 16, 18 years ago, where we were put into a situation where we were partnered with people that we didn't look and smell and talk like each other. And it was wonderful. There since then is now something called Partnership MKE, which is another attempt to do that very same thing. But Paula, I agree with you. In most cases, you just simply got to jump in and just go for it. I'm actually embarrassed, like I said at the outset, that I don't know Amaris, that I know Pardeep, that we've probably been into a dozen places with each other, and I never really had a chance to sit and talk with you, Amaris, and for that I apologize. Let's make it happen. I'll host it at my home. I'll host it at the Federation. There's our JCC. There's umpteen places we can go to actually be with each other and just do this. There's also something else. I want to add something. The more you do this, the less uncomfortable it is. I find tremendous discomfort with some of these situations very comforting. I don't mind, People ask, I've said one Jew, no waiting many, many times in my life. I'll answer any question you have about Judaism anytime, and there's nothing that offends me anymore because I've been asked the most offensive stuff out there already. So let's do that. And let's do the same thing with whatever the religion, whatever you want to talk about. Let's just get it out there and talk about it.
Oh, I think you have some other folks who did. Sheldon said she was in the first partnership MKE, and it created long-lasting relationships.
Yeah, I was in that same cohort. I was in the same first group. It was great. It was wonderful.
Cool.
You know, we haven't done Surf to Unite in a long time, but when we had Surf to Unite, there's usually like 10 schools